Hello and welcome back to part 4 of this 4-part series. So yes, today is the very last week that we are going to finish this really beautiful white dog portrait. So excited to be able to show you the magic that happens in this last little bit of the portrait. I know that it can get really scary sometimes halfway through working through a portrait. And that's when a lot of the times, like I've been there many times, but a lot of us will give up in the frustration and worry that it's just not going to come together. But I really always recommend that you stick the painting out to the very end, because there's a lot of really important details that happen at the end that make it make sense. So I hope this series, if anything, has kind of showed you that process and to feel more confident in the process of painting a pet portrait. So we definitely need to finish up the lower half of this dog's neck area, and then I am going to go back, see what needs a little bit more layers, and then those final like bleed proof white details. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a medium pointed round brush with me right now, and that is what I'll use to kind of work at this part down here. So going to wet my brush, and I know a lot of the times we've been working with that kind of grayish color, and I'm going to recreate that as well as I work my way down below here. So that was our Payne's Gray mixed with the Van Dyke Brown, and you might have some of that still on your palette like I do. If you don't, go ahead and mix that up. It's okay if you never get it the same as you did before. The best thing about painting a lifelike object or a real animal like a dog or anything like that is you don't need to get the exact colors to match all the time. That's the beauty about painting something that is lifelike like this. Okay, so I have like a really light amount of that grayish color on my brush, and we are going to start now kind of in this area right here and working our way. So as you can see, this does not match that color that when I left this painting the last week. So do not worry. I can kind of even bring some of this color into that other area that I already painted just to help kind of blend it in. But I will show you how it does not need to be exactly the same. So I'm leaving a little bit of white. That's kind of like the under chin area of the dog's mouth right here. And then I am going to start to use kind of longer, some thin, some thick strokes. And we're going to start painting them in the direction that the hair appears. And that is going to start to show some of those longer hairs that are in the neck. And I'm one to always be constantly mixing up the colors as I go. Just can never make enough. So no big deal if you don't get them exactly to color match. So as you can see, I'm just kind of painting them down, out, and some are kind of going this way and some are going that way. Oops, that's gonna be way too much color here. Just mix up a lot. It's okay if you have some areas that are darker, some are lighter. If you have a lot on your brush, just always start in an area that is truly the darkest. So kind of right under that chin. All right, so we'll start to fade some out up here. And again, we're just painting in the direction of the hairs. I'm leaving little bits of white between those hairs. And then I have some up here that need to kind of go out from the dog's side of their face. And then I will grab some more. When it comes to painting like the outer edge of a dog portrait like this, especially white, and if I'm not painting a background, I do like to put kind of a darker edge to the dog's fur. So similar to what I'm doing here, I'm just kind of showing some thin, thick little strokes. And that is creating the area here that is I just need to put some darker, some lighter. It's just showing how that hair is kind of flowing out from the dog's face. Okay, and down the side of the neck there. We can bring some of them kind of back in using just a little bit of water. Now I definitely want to leave some of the white of the paper here, but I do see a little bit of a darker area with the white hair shadowed down here. So I'll kind of make it look like this area is lighter and brighter by not filling it in as much. Maybe just adding a few little light areas for the hairs. And then I'll fill in this area here. All right, so just taking sometimes whatever I have on my brush and just kind of smoothing it in, leaving little bits of white. Okay, I like how that looks for right now. Let's move on to this side of the dog's neck. And again, I think I mentioned this in previous videos, but the light source is coming from up here. So when that happens, I like to bring in more warm colors. So here's my Van Dyke Brown, and you can mix a little bit of like the Payne's Gray, but I do like working with more warmer colors wherever the light is hitting it. And you can kind of see that in the reference photo. So I'll just kind of start down here in the middle. So here I have mostly just the Van Dyke Brown and maybe just a little hint of other gray colors. And this is going to be a really pretty transition to kind of making it appear like light or a different light source is hitting it and creating these different shadow colors. Same type of white fur across the entire dog, but it's just the way the light is hitting it and creating these different colors. All right. But we will bring in some of those other cooler colors. So let's go ahead and just grab some of that Payne's Gray, a little bit of brown. We'll also bring those in too. So I definitely want to show a little area here because we want to offset the dog's face from the neck. Just going to make it a little darker. And then there are some fun hairs that kind of jet out from the dog's neck here. It's okay if you don't get them exactly how you see them on the photo. We just want to give the illusion of how the dog's hair is kind of jetting out on either side. Okay, so I have a little excess amount on my brush, and this is going to help define the dog's area from the mouth and the nose. So I left a little bit of a highlight here, but right here is where that dog's smile was. And then I'm taking a little bit more of that color and working it into this part of that lower cheekbone and on the dog's side of their face. So again, just mixing up some of the Payne's Gray, some of the brown, and just going to add a little bit more there. I'll just come back down here. Kind of painting some fun different directions of how that hair is flowing. Okay. But also important too then that we do leave some of the areas like here white, so it has more highlight, especially on the side that it's getting the light source. Okay. So if you're worried about things looking too streaky down here, you can always take a little bit of a larger brush or kind of work with the one that you have that's a medium size. Just mixing up a little more color. but then you'll just use more of that to just kind of run over that area. And then it'll just help to kind of darken and soften with water and a little bit of color. Sometimes a little bit of a larger brush can be a little more helpful. But the key to white dogs is to not be afraid to add depth and color to certain shadows. That is what's really going to help your dog portrait pop. So that's what I'll do right now is I'll pick up a little bit more Payne's Gray and mix it with the brown. And now I can start to go back through and add in just some subtle shadowed areas like that. It's just going to make a nice contrast. So again, I'm going to grab that same kind of grayish color, and we are going to add it in some other areas up into the face that we've already painted. So there was a nice little dark area here. I'm actually going to add a little more brown. I want it to be a little bit warmer. And we can show some hairs up here. As you can see, that's already starting to bring a little more shape, including up here into the dog's face. I see some right here. And also kind of in the cheekbone there. Because this is where we start to look at the entire painting as a whole. And just to kind of see where we need just a little more depth. So once this dries down here, I can see that we need to add a little more layering down here. It's a little wet yet, so it's just going to continue to kind of blend and bloom down there, and until it's fully dry, we'll be able to actually add more layering to it. But for right now, we'll just add a little more up here. I definitely want to add some into the dogs around the eyes here, so I'll add some up here into the eyebrow area. I'll bring that up close so you can kind of see, just adding a little bit of detail there. Maybe some kind of going around and up and around the dog's eye. I think we could go a little bit darker down below the dog's eye there. Even some on this side. So again, I'm kind of just adding transparent layers, a little bit of texture here and there with the combination of Payne's Gray and the Van Dyke Brown. All right, let's see. What about some areas up into, I think I could add just a little bit right here. So that was quite the contrast, but I think that'll look nice and help to offset the dog's face. Maybe some down in here. Let's see. Like that. And definitely need to add some down in here. Again, it's not really as dry, so it's going to just keep expanding. All right, mixing up a little more of that. More water, less paint. I don't want a ton on my brush. And this is where you can kind of bring in a little more depth into like the ears. So here I'll just add a little bit there, maybe some up here. Just kind of go around the dog's face and see where there are darker areas, especially right there. I would even say one right there didn't get quite dark enough. see. And some up here. And there wasn't a whole lot of darkness on this side of the dog's ear, probably because the light is hitting it a little bit just differently. So I didn't add a whole ton there. You can even add just maybe a little bit right here. And yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on how many little hairs you want to showcase in your dog portraits. I kind of like to show some and then leave some patches open so it's not super overwhelming by texture, but you get the general idea. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. Maybe we could darken up the tongue, kind of a little more on this side, so I'll just get rid of all the color on my brush. And let's see what I have left over here. Kind of some reds, maybe a little bit of orange or the burnt sienna mixed together. And definitely some of our Payne's gray just to kind of darken that red. And then we will kind of use that to almost act as like a glaze or some type of light transparent layer over what we've already done. So it's going to show some of those textures and lines underneath. But something like that, maybe bring in a little bit more. All right. Just kind of painted a little bit on the tooth so it's not quite so bright. That looks pretty good. I'll grab some of the Payne's gray. I have quite a bit on my brush. This is just where I want to add a little more texture into the fleshy part of the dog's like mouth, lip. So it's going to layer really nice because the rest of it underneath is dry. So I just put a little bit of that dark line kind of coming through the center there. You can kind of see that in the reference photo on the lip and underneath there. And then a little bit more kind of down and around the tongue. Just seems to really help add a little extra realism into the painting. And that can help as well to darken any areas within the nose. And let's see, maybe down the center here. Okay. So here I have the dog so far, and the last but not least that I want to do for this portrait is add in those bleed-proof white details. So we are going to grab a small brush, and that could be a size 1, 000. Again, every brand of brush is going to act differently, or the different sizes are going to not be the same across different brands is what I meant. Okay, so I should just say bleed proof white is fairly new, so it's got this nice creamy kind of glue-like consistency of this ink or paint. So that is what I will use to create these really bright, beautiful highlights throughout the dog's face. This is my absolute favorite part of the entire painting, and I can't wait for you to see how it makes it come to life. So working up here into the dog's ear, we already kind of showed that hair, but sometimes they have like these dull edges, and we can't quite get them as sharp as you would, or as a hair would be. So that's when you take your really fine line brush and you can paint on those little hairs that kind of come over that color. I'm going to switch to my other tiny little fine liner brush. I can usually get, I like the shorter bristles to this one. Okay, oops. Sometimes it helps if you want to put it onto your palette, but you just need a little bit. And this is where you can paint on those hairs, and it can give it some more texture and realism and mimic those bright white hairs that kind of come over. So I'll go ahead and do that. Be sure to paint them short if they appear to be shorter in the reference, or paint them longer if they are longer hairs. All right, sometimes there's some hairs that are over here. You can also use that for that. Kind of help blend in some of that area. I don't like to use this like all over and overuse it. But I do love to use it in areas that are super bright white and need to be kind of faded and blended in certain areas. All right, so on this side of the ear, I don't know if you can kind of tell already, but like this side of the ear looks a lot more realistic with how those hairs are overlapping. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. And sometimes it helps to spin your brush on your palette to get a nice like point to your brush. All right. Just gonna add some more there. Add some up in here. Sometimes it helps to kind of get them to kind of go in different directions a little bit, so they're not all consistently going in the same swoop. All right, so now to work down in here, this is also another really great area to use this bleed-proof white or white gouache. So we did leave little bits of white, but if you need to, you can always go back through and add more of that hair texture with your bleed-proof white. Again, I just like to do it in little sections, not all consistently all over. Let's see, I kind of want to bring some little white back in the nose. You can see there's got to be some little white flecks here. Maybe some up in here too. And then what I didn't finish down here were some of these longer little whiskers. So that is what I'll do right now, and that also helps to make it look a lot more realistic. All right, let's see. I don't need to paint every whisker. I do like to paint some of those there. Let's see, let's do some over here. And it might be helpful to also bring in a darker paint color to paint those whiskers, just to help offset some of that white. So let's see, I might add another one. Maybe add a couple here coming off. All right. Down here on the chin, definitely needs a little more hair-like texture. I feel like it kind of disappeared, and it'll also help to offset it from the chin underneath. So I just added a little bit of hair there. And I'll add a little bit more kind of going back here, being careful to leave some of those colors, like that reddish color that I painted there. So even that alone really helped to bring back the chin. Now, again, if you lost some of the white highlights within the tongue, Another great way to do that is to just use the bleed-proof white, add a few highlights. And as well as in like the eye, I'm pretty happy with my eye area, so I'm not going to add bleed-proof white into it, but if you needed to, this is something that you can use if you needed to bring back some shiny areas in the eye. All right. Sometimes I will use it within the body if I feel like the body got too dark, or especially in like really curly dogs, I'll kind of help emphasize some of those curls. You can just kind of work them in like that. I don't think this dog portrait needs it, and I think that is going to be enough white areas down there. The only thing that I want to do now is just grab a little bit of darker paint, maybe a little bit of Payne's Gray, just to help paint on some of the whiskers and other areas right here to show a little more depth to the portrait. But okay, there we have it. There is our white fur dog, and I think he turned out beautiful. I hope you're able to see that through this process of breaking it down into sections each week, that you were able to slowly but surely trust the process of this dog coming to life. If you haven't already, be sure to watch all the parts in the series. So part 1, the ears, part 2, the eyes, part 3 was the nose and the mouth, and then part 4 was the neck, and also just kind of finishing up as you saw all those other details in the portrait. I will leave a link down below to all the other videos in the series so you can go back and revisit those. But that is it for this 4-part series. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you truly enjoyed it. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And I can't wait to paint with you all in future videos.